What is your promise? Why are you in business? How do you expect to grow?
This is The Hook, a show focused on branding, marketing, and business development.
You brand to inspire, not to sell.
Jason Arsmont, the marketing maverick, gives expertise to business owners, serial entrepreneurs, and anyone interested in building a stronger company brand.
Creating a brand is like telling a story. You've got one shot to say it all.
When your marketing works, you've got them on the hook.
You're listening to The Hook, the first ever show that incorporates marketing and branding, brought to you by The Work Lodge. We like to consider this a business solution to your everyday company needs that can increase your presence and your return on investment. My name is Josh Reno. I'm the marketing strategist at Brightbox Brand Marketing, along with Jason Arsmont. We call him the Marketing Maverick. He's the CEO of Brightbox. And, of course, you're listening to The Hook, a brand new show. Tell us, Jason, why do they call you the Marketing Maverick?
Well, thanks for the introduction there, Josh. I guess, like any good name, they have a story, right? So mine starts back probably, almost 15 years ago now. I was just brought on to a marketing firm here in Houston, and at that time I was just a sales guy. They weren't aware of my background in marketing and strategy, growing up in a family of entrepreneurs. And so it was my job to bring in the new clients and hand them off to the strategy team. And I did that with this particular account, and after a couple months, the client wasn't too happy with the results, so they kind of had this huddle, this meeting, bring everybody back together and talk about the strategy. And it was that time I had the opportunity to start giving some of my own ideas and really just kind of exploring some of the things that I had in mind in things that we had practiced in family business. And one of the strategists leaned over to the owner of the company at the time and said, "Man, that kid's a real maverick." And it just kind of stuck. From then on, I've kind of held that for whatever reason and, seemed to be a real good play on what it was I like to do.
So we talk about branding and marketing, and that's what we're going to bring to you every single week. You can also reach out to us. The website is thehookradio.com. If you have some business success stories or if you have any questions for us, definitely hit us up on the website, and you can email us. You can find all our social media there. And the reason that we talk about branding, where it goes back to Jason, is because you have more than one company that all really ties together. And we'll talk about The Hook and why we call it The Hook. But let's talk about your background a little bit.
Yeah, so, I started off, this series of companies that we have right now, Brightbox being the parent company. That's our brand marketing firm. We started this group about 8 years ago, really with the idea that we wanted to have a full-service brand marketing firm where all things done under one roof, from market strategy to web development, video production, graphic design, public relations, you named it. And that took off. Within the first year, we started doing extremely well. By year 2 and 3, we qualified for the Inc. 500 list of fastest growing companies. Things were just going phenomenally well. We decided to separate some of the things that we did into other box companies. So we were doing trade show booths for clients, and we decided that rather than diluting the Brightbox brand marketing brand, we would separate that out. And so we started our own trade show exhibit group and named that company Showbox. And then we decided that we were doing a lot of printing. When we looked at all the marketing collateral pieces and all the trade show booth graphics, there was so much printing going on that it really justified having its own print company. And so we branded that off into Inkbox. And then finally we did a company called Shadowbox, which does all of our HR outsourcing. So staffing, recruiting, payroll processing. You'll hear more about them later on in the show. So we've been able to kind of spread the brand across. One of the things that we really focus on in trying to tell our clients is owning that one thought within the minds of the consumer. And for us, we were just doing too many things under one roof to really own all of it. So Brightbox will own branding and marketing, Showbox will own trade shows and printing and so on and so forth. So it was kind of a real strategy implementation, practicing what we preach.
Now let's bring it back to why the show is called The Hook. I had a few questions around here. In fact, Ramon Robles said, "What do you mean The Hook? What does The Hook mean?" And so we kind of want to explain where that's coming from too.
Yeah, for me, The Hook, probably the best way to explain it, The Hook it's kind of like a moment in time. Probably the best way to do is I'll use you as an example. What was the last kind of major purchase that you and the family made?
Probably my car, van, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So in going out shopping, you're being inundated either by ads before you ever get to the dealership. You're seeing cars drive around. You're kind of getting an idea of what you might like. Then at some point during the presentation of the vehicle, the car salesman is going through all the details, the warranty, all the good stuff about it. And at some point, you make a decision regardless of whatever he says here from here on out, you're going to buy this car. Was there kind of that pivotal moment in your mind that you can think back and recall?
Yeah, it was whenever my wife said, I really want this.
That'll do it every time, right? So your wife created the hook for you, but that moment, that specific moment when a consumer decides to engage and to take action in buying, they make the decision to buy the product or the service, that moment is what I call the hook. And, it's really my passion for the hook that led me to starting my own marketing firm 8 years ago. It's that same passion that led me to wanting to start this radio show. I've got a real passion for helping companies develop and find out and fine-tune what their hook is. What is your unique proposition that you're offering to the market? And so business owners, marketing development folks, this show is your show. We're here to dedicate this and to bring you the best content on marketing, sales, business development, branding. That's our passion. I know Josh shares that passion with me, and so we're excited to be here and to continue to offer your hook.
And you also have books out that we can kind of mention for a second?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got so the last book we did last year was called Your Spot on the Mountain. It's on Amazon, and this is kind of a personal growth story of myself over the years on business and things that I've learned. And so I wanted to give back to those kind of coming up in the professional world about finding your spot on the mountain of success. Where are you going to be? Are you going to be at the top of the mountain? That's great. Go get it. But be aware that at the top of the mountain, it can be cold. It's icy. There's, the air is thin. There's not a lot of oxygen. And so maybe setting the goals appropriately to the lifestyle and the way that you want to live is the right way to do it. And so this book kind of guides you through that as well as gives you some tips. And then we're wrapping up, hopefully this week, next week, it'll be out on Amazon, a new book on branding. So we use our proprietary brand mapping process, and that book is going to be called The Brand Map and should be on Amazon here within the next week or so.
Good timing on that. And bringing that one in, right? So one of the things that we really want to avoid is kind of industry jargon, because you'll hear a lot of people talking over your head whenever it comes to certain industry terms like, hey, ROI, and that's an easy one. That's going to be return on investment. We want to stay away from the cliche terms and kind of bring everything down to a level where we all understand it, because I know that there have been meetings that Jason and I have been in and that he's engaged with the client and he's talking about something that I may not understand. So after we leave the meeting, I'm like, what was that right there? Whenever I first got into this, say a year and a half ago. So we want to avoid that part of it and make it as easy as possible. That way, whenever you're talking to someone in marketing, that you don't feel like they are trying to talk over your head and throw out these jazzy terms.
Absolutely. And we really want this to be an interactive show. So you guys go to thehookradio.com. If you have questions or if you have a business struggle or something that you're dealing with, a scenario that you'd like to get some feedback or some clarity on, go to thehookradio.com, shoot us an email, and we'd be more than happy to answer your questions. I think one of those things that a lot of people within the business space, one of the first things you do when you start opening your business is you got to figure out where you're going to be in business, right? Maybe you're in the home office at first, and then you need to branch out and get a little bit more. And I think one of those terms that always comes to mind is this shared workspace. You probably have an idea in your mind when you hear me say that. What is, there's companies like Regis, there's some of these corporate workspace areas that you can go rent out a little office. And, you mentioned one of our sponsors and supporters of the show, the Work Lodge. They are, I want to say they're kind of a shared workspace, but they've really redefined what this means. If you guys are up north side of town off 249 in Louetta here in Houston, you've got to go by and check this place out. They've just completely turned the whole concept upside down, and not your typical banking over corporate stuffy environment. They have really taken the shared workspace and turned it into allowing you to kind of have like a corporate culture as a 1 or 2, 3-man team. Everybody in there has open glass workspaces. They do events each month, and then just the whole feel. You walk in, there's a disco ball, there's a slide of all things. I mean, it just has kind of this like Silicon Valley tech edgy, kind of a cool, trendy,
kind of
hip
a
feel.
Google place to
Yeah,
work.
yeah. You can't have that. I know whenever I started my business, I was working out of a coffee shop. I would have loved to have a place that was affordable, that I could collaborate with other like-minded, highly aggressive, motivated, energetic people. And I'll tell you what, the Work Lodge has nailed it. So check them out at theworklodge.com and stop by and visit them if you get a chance. They're off of 249 in Louetta. just an unbelievable place.
And they have the event that you talked about coming up, and you can find out more about the event whenever you go.
Yeah, they're doing like casino night where they're rolling in some business strategy. They've got social media folks coming in once a month to teach the small business owners about social media. I think we're going out there in November to do a brand marketing workshop, so I'll be there to work with folks and take them through a branding exercise. But yeah, it's just a really, really neat place. They've just done a phenomenal job setting that up and doing something completely different. So I like that you mentioned these kind of common terms and don't get we got to define them, but let's also not let them define our idea of what business could be.
That's exactly right. That's Jason Arsmont. My name is Josh Reno, and we are The Hook. That's the name of the show. You can always find us on our website. That's thehookradio.com. Got a great segment coming up next with someone that you know that is going to be our guest, our first ever guest, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You know, this guy is an unbelievable leader in the community and, you know, really shares a passion for mine. One of the best things about being in business is you have the ability to define and shape your life, you know, not just in work, but at home too. And Lance Gilliam has done a phenomenal job of building his company and leveraging that company to help fulfill his passions for helping all Houstonians, especially those in the low-income special needs group. So I'm excited to have him on, and you guys you're in for a real treat. This guy's done all kinds of things and has a really impressive portfolio across the board.
Fantastic. Coming up next, second segment of The Hook.
I want to tell you a story about the house went blue. I come home one Friday, had to tell the landlady I done lost my job.
You're listening to The Hook, the first ever show that incorporates marketing and branding. My name is Josh Reno, and along with me, Jason Arsmont. You can actually always find us on our website. It's thehookradio.com, and we have a very special guest today, Jason.
Absolutely. Our guest today is not only recognized as a successful business person. I know Josh and I have talked about him a couple times, but he's also someone who's just genuinely dedicated to serving others. As a partner at Waterman, Steele Real Estate Advisors, he manages some of the largest retail accounts in the world. But perhaps what I'm more impressed with is his ability to involve his community involvement. I mean, this guy sits on the board. He's on the executive committee of the Urban Land Institute of Houston Council. He's a member of the International Council of Shopping Centers. He was actually the dean at one point for the School of Open Air Shopping. He's immediate past president of the Children's Museum of Houston Board of Directors, former member of the Urban League of Houston. And then in January 2010, he was actually appointed to the Houston Housing Authority Board of Commissioners, and in January 2012, he was elected to the chair. I mean, that's a lot. This guy is busy. He's all over the place. He's wildly successful. We're so excited to have him here, and I want to welcome Lance Gilliam to the show. Lance, welcome.
Well, thank you, Jason. I appreciate you all having me here today.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, with all that said, your time is valuable, so I'll get right into some questions here. You know, it's hard to ignore your list of clients. You've worked with some of the most successful companies in the world, like HEB, Frost Bank, Circuit City. I mean, the list goes on and on. You know, I think our listeners could really learn a lot from what does it take to be able to work with, or what have you learned in working with some of these large companies?
Well, what it takes to work with them is just a commitment to excellence and quality. All these firms have demanded the best from us as real estate brokers, and they really look to us as advisors. We're given the responsibility for helping them invest millions of dollars. And our firm's commitment at Waterman Steele and my predecessor firms has always been to have great information, current technology, be willing to say, don't do that. It's a funny thing in our industry as real estate brokers where we're typically compensated based on a percentage of the value of a transaction. And the best advice you can give your client is don't do that. Because
I love it. I wish I could say that and just tell the client no.
Well, and sometimes they don't take the advice. No. Sometimes they say we want to do it anyway, and then our commitment is we don't think this is a great idea, but if you do and you're the client and it's your money, we're going to do it in the best way we possibly can to get the best outcome for you. But our commitment to excellence in terms of ethically representing our clients and getting the best outcome for them has led us to have relationships that span 20 and 30 years, in some cases my entire career.
Wow.
I still have clients that I started with in the beginning.
You know, that's an interesting point that I'm sure a lot of our listeners, you know, they look at the resume, the portfolio of clients that you have, and sometimes we kind of scratch our head as we look up that, you know, that list and go, man, you know, how do you start working with companies like that? Did your career start off working with some of the big names? Were you just aggressive in pursuing that, or did it start much more modestly?
Well, luck.
Luck.
I started much more modestly. I started at the what's now I guess the Henry S. Miller Company again. It went through a number of transitions over the years, but I started in college working for the Henry S. Miller Company, knocking on doors in Plano, Texas, when Plano, Texas wasn't really Plano, Texas. It wasn't cool to be in Plano.
Putting them on the map, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and trying to get a donut shop to come out of Richardson to Plano. And a lot of it just went being willing to do that all day long and enjoy doing it and having fun talking to folks like you today. And then luck kicked in, where you would go call on somebody and you would get there first, or you would be reading an article about somebody who was in Florida. Office Depot was an account very, very important to me. I represented them to a big part of the United States when they rolled out their company in the late 80s and early 90s. And it was literally a sign call in Houston that led to me reading an article about a company in Florida, and I did store number 12 for them, and 400 stores later. But it was a cold call. But it was an educated cold call. I knew more about their company than anybody else in Houston did at the time, and I used that knowledge to my advantage.
Absolutely. And see, I think that's a big distinction there. You know, Lance is modest when he says luck, but, you know, we always define that luck as being prepared when opportunity comes. And as you said, you knew a lot about them already. You were reading articles that had to do with the industry that you were involved in. So, sure, there's some luck involved, but, you know, the commitment to the space is what allowed you to take advantage of that. You know, you mentioned that, you know, doing this for a long time. I know you've been in the commercial real estate space here in Houston for 30-plus years. What are some of the changes that you've seen over the years in the city's economy, or maybe do you have any insight on what you think's around the corner for us?
Well, that's we were talking about that this morning. Thankfully, Houston tends to give more than it takes away. But right now, it's it's taken a little bit away from us. It's a more challenging economy right now. We don't have good news every day. I still would rather be here than anywhere else in the United States, or maybe anywhere else in the world right now. It's just a great, great city, but we've gone through cycles. And this cycle, and I don't know if you would call it the end of the cycle, but the pause we have right now is one that we've been expecting for years. We've been on a roll here for a very, very, very long time. And it's given many gifts to a lot of us financially and allowed us to do great things, but it's taking some of the money back off the table right now, and we'll be okay.
Absolutely.
You're listening to The Hook. My question is that have you been able to accurately determine when things come back around? I mean, you've been doing this for long enough in this space.
No, if I could.
There's that no again. He's good at giving the no.
You guys seem like nice guys, but I'd be on a beach somewhere, not here right now, if I was that good at my job. The retail industry tends to be the last to turn down and the last to come back. Mm-hmm. We tend to be a trailing indicator. Consumer spending is directly an influence on what I do with the majority of my time in my job, but it's felt like for a long time, and I'm talking about several years, that it's been just a little bit too heated up, and there's just a little bit too much going on, and at some point there was going to have to be some kind of correction. Now, could I predict oil prices? Again, if I could, y'all seem nice, but I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be, on a big yacht in the middle of the Mediterranean, I guess. I don't know, but
say south of 100 a barrel is probably a good projection.
Somewhere
south.
There's smarter people than me who get that right on occasion.
Right. Kind of moving aside from business a little bit, I want to talk about your volunteerism, something we were talking about before the show. And with the long list of service that you've provided to the city, I mean, there's just no doubting your commitment. I'm real curious, where does that commitment come from? What's the fire? Where does that passion come from to be so involved and give so much of your time and your assets?
Yeah, it's funny. The truth of the matter is I'm not sure. It's there. It may have come from my grandparents. It may come from my dad. My dad is one of the best, nicest, sweetest men in the whole world. He owned a company, and every employee that he had not only was an employee, but was a family, and there were kids behind those employees. And to me, it's about the kids. And I know I'm not supposed to use the word kids. My mom would have a heart attack at the children. But to me, it's about the kids, and it's about their families, and that's where the passion for every child to have the same opportunity that I had and to have the life that they deserve is what drives that. And frankly, it's very selfish. I get the compensation I receive from doing that work is much greater than anything I can do in terms of a paycheck.
Absolutely. Wow.
So it's awesome.
Yep. Well, we're big fans of giving and kind of contributing back. Philanthropy around the hook is a positive thing for sure. One of the articles I read of yours was in the Houston Chronicle. Can Houston remain a city of opportunity was the title. And it was about how we can close the gap for people who are struggling in Houston. I'm curious, what's your take on how small businesses can start taking action, because I think there's this mentality like, oh, well, I'll do it when I make more, right? When I get a little bit more successful, then I'll have time to start giving back. What's your take on that?
Well, it's an issue of degrees. You don't have to have a lot to give back a little. Give proportion to what you can afford to do, but create an opportunity in your firm for someone who may not have had that opportunity somewhere else. Or do something as simple as our firm is we're small. We only have 12 people in our firm. But we ask every one of our employees or associates and brokers to find something in the community they're passionate about and to connect through a nonprofit organization. And then we as a company, we support them with giving them time off to go do that. Or when we have financial ability to support their contributions, we try and match it. And we're a little company. But those 12 people, which includes me, make huge impacts when you look at everything that we touch. And it may be as simple as taking, Neil Bush is awesome. He's encouraged us to simply take 30 minutes out of your week and read to a kid. That's it. And you can do it from your desk. So every one of our employees is welcome to take 30 minutes off, not during lunchtime. It's not their personal time, but if they need to take 30 minutes a week to read to a child, we encourage that. And you don't have to be a big company to do that. You don't have to have millions of dollars to do that.
How do you not, right? When it sounds, when you do some simple steps, I will say, just for Josh, for the record, craft brewery and beer is not a philanthropy. So the 30 minutes, I see you already adding it up in your mind. How am I going to fit this in?
That's
okay.
Use
some of Lance's recommendations here.
That's okay. I did that during lunch, so that was
nice.
considered my lunch break.
Great.
You might want to read before lunch as opposed to after lunch if you're doing craft brewery at lunch. So,
right.
Yeah.
I know one of the other things I want to talk with you about. I know you did some work with the Houston Grocery Access Task Force. I know that HEB played a role in that. I'd love just to talk with you a little bit about that task force and some of the things that you guys did.
Well, and Scott McClellan at HEB is something really special. He is just a gentleman who's had an impact on our community and on me in so many positive ways as a leader in the Grocery Access Task Force and now as a leader at, of course, Greater Houston Partnership and Early Matters. His commitment individually and through HEB obviously is a huge player, and doing the right thing in our community is really extraordinary. But back in college, I'd always been fascinated by the disparity of access to grocery stores in communities of color and lower income communities versus where I live. I've got Central Market, have Randall's, Kroger, Whole Foods, all within blocks of my house.
Right.
And yet you go into some parts of Houston and there hasn't been a new grocery store built since 1972 or maybe even earlier.
Wow.
And the quality of the store is less. The selection of goods, just produce, meats, normal canned goods is less, and prices tend to be higher. And it's fascinating since college. And the Food Trust folks came down here from Philadelphia. Good things can come out of the Northeast.
Right.
And really inspired us as a city and challenged us to address the issue. And then we were blessed that the mayor and Councilmember Costello, in support of the mayor, gave us money to actually make an impact. And that task force, I've been invited, and it's funny, I didn't do anything. I just showed up. But I've been invited to speak around the rest of the country on how we got it done. And it's real easy. The mayor gave us $5 million with the approval of council and said, see what you can do with this, guys. And everybody else had $25,000. And so the difference between $25,000 to do a study and $5 million to start building stores is extraordinary. But that credit really goes to the mayor's administration and to others around it that
seeing and sharing that vision.
Oh,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's amazing when you have folks like that on your side.
Man, yeah, you can't beat that. You were also involved with the GHP, the Greater Houston Partnership, and have had a big hand as the former president of the Children's Museum of Houston. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about how that kind of involvement helped with your network, business and personal brand related? I think it's really good for our listeners to hear that.
Well, and here's and this, it's kind of an awkward subject because volunteerism is good for business. I mean, if you're a salesman, which is really what I am, I'm a real estate salesman. That's what my license said when I was 18, and I got it. And then one day I got raised up to broker, which just means that you have more liability and you're good at test taking. But look, I'm a salesman, and sales is about networking. And if you want to network and you want people to really learn where your heart and your soul and even your mind is get in a room of volunteers who are there working for free towards something they're passionate about, and being in the room with whether it's folks from Bank of America or Bank of Texas or HEB, and working side by side with those people in a truly genuine way. They learn a lot about you because they assume, and hopefully in our case it's true because I believe it is, that we take that same passion into our business. And we also take that same ethic in terms of moral commitment to doing the right thing.
Right.
Is we don't do that just for nonprofits. We do that for our for-profit clients. And so, look, for your listeners trying to build a small business, it's good business to be on a rodeo committee.
Right.
You meet great people.
Right.
You never know. And the funny thing is, I don't even know what most of my friends do. And yet many of them will come to me and go, aren't you that real estate guy? I was like, yeah. They said, can you help me?
Yep.
I can't tell you. The biggest transaction I've ever made was in the usher's room at St. Martin's Church, where I was a member of the vestry and a head usher. And one of the guys in the room after church came up and said, can you help me out on this? And I said, I don't know what you do. Tell me about what you do. And it turns out he represented a client who owned a huge piece of property.
Wow.
But it came out of just becoming not necessarily even friends, but just working side by side in other endeavors.
Right. I think the good thing there, one of the key points I'm hearing, Lance and myself, a lot of us have the opportunity to be passionate about what we do to make how we make a living. But so many people do a job, they learn a skill, or they have a trade, and they're having to do that to make a living. But this is great advice. Follow your heart, find something that you're passionate about, volunteer your time, and it can bless the rest of your life as well.
Well, that's what I had the privilege of speaking in D.C., Washington, D.C. last year at the invitation of Congresswoman Jackson Lee. And it was a group of folks starting small businesses, primarily minority business owners. And my advice to them was, be passionate about what you're doing. Make sure you like what you're doing, because if you don't like what you're doing, it's going to be really hard to hide that. And sooner or later, it's going to come screaming out to either your customer or your client or someone around you. Your family may take the brunt of, I hate my job, and you hide it all day long. But go find something that you're really happy doing, that you're excited about getting up in the morning and going to do. And that's not easy. I mean, you have to – I haven't my whole life been able to be excited about answering a phone call from a client that I wasn't, thinking this is my favorite person to talk to. Fortunately, I'm at a point in my life that I'm blessed where when my phone rings, I don't have a client that I don't want to talk to. I don't enjoy spending time with, whether I don't mind. I like sitting down and having lunch with, or hunting with, or just being out with. And that is a blessing.
Absolutely.
But you have to earn that. It takes a lot of time to get to the point where you can pick and choose.
Yeah, it takes a lot of 12-hour days, right?
Yep.
We were talking about that earlier. And then I heard there's something else coming up this month in October. Are you involved in a leadership forum, maybe, to some extent?
Well, I am, and it's there's a great group that's been brought together here in Houston. It was just an opportunity for community leaders to share information they have with others, share their passions, their expertise, and put themselves out to answer questions about what's happening in the legislature. And the same thing, I'd love to answer questions about what's happening at the Housing Authority, or what's happening at my real commitment has always been to improving the life of families, especially children, and particularly, like I said, lower income communities and communities of color. And that comes through in housing, it comes through in food, and still the most important one's education.
Absolutely.
I mean, education is essentially providing someone not with a fish, but a fishing pole.
Right.
We've heard that 1,000 times, and there's so much truth to that. If you can empower a young child to read and to have that skill, that's the kind of information we want to share, but explain to people why that's important.
Right.
Some people, and I don't know why, they still don't get it. I'll keep talking about it.
Yeah, I love the fishing pole analogy for the education, because that's spot on. A big problem in these communities is bringing them up, and the way to bring them up isn't just through handouts, but educating them on the things they need to do, the steps they can take, and the decisions that they can make in their life. I love that. It's obvious that you have done so much, and you're continuing to do so much. I always like to ask the question for guys who are as active as you. What's next for you? What do you see next? The next 5 years, 10 years, where do you see yourself going?
That's funny. It's not a question I was prepared for. I've laughed with my kids. I just turned 59, and 60. There is no 60 is the next 40. I mean, 50 was the next 40, 40 was the next 30. 60 is just 60.
60, 60. That's it.
It just is what it is. And it's the first birthday I've had where I've thought, what do I do next? I love working for the people that I work for. I'm going to work for them as long as they'll let me work for them, as long as I'm competent to do that. But I think to continue, I'll hopefully, with the mayor's blessing, be at the Housing Authority for the next couple of years. I was gifted with David Mintzberg as my predecessor. Mayor White appointed David for 2 years as he left office, and I think Mayor Parker's plan is to help me transition the next board for the next mayor. But I think I'd really like ultimately to get back to education and volunteering in the education community. That's what I've tried to, like with Early Matters at the Greater Eastern Partnership, is set myself up that where I can have as much direct connection to children as possible. And then I have 3 great kids. One's a prosecutor in Harris County, one's a veteran and just finished his master's, and I have a teenager. And to be able to spend as much time as possible with my children and as my family probably grows someday, that's what I want to do.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, we're really looking forward to that continued impact you've had on the city. So I've got a couple off-the-cuff questions here. I like to do just some fun things. So just real quick, I'm going to say a couple things. You'll just off-the-cuff response. So tomato.
Tomato.
All right. Pepsi or Coke?
Coke for sure.
Coke for sure. Beer? Diet Coke. Uh-oh. All right, that still counts as a Coke. Beer or wine?
I miss beer, but I drink my fair share of wine.
Wine guy. All right. And then how about barbecue or filet?
Barbecue for sure.
Nice. This is a solid guy. See, look at that. This is awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lance, for being a part of our show and actually being our first ever guest. This has been quite an eye-opener and such a great opportunity for our listeners to learn from someone who's done such a phenomenal job as a business leader, as well as a community involvement and the volunteerism that we talked about. This is great. We look forward to having you back on the show, and we will definitely be keep us posted on the Art of Leadership Forum that you guys are going to be doing later on this month. We'll be posting that on our website and keeping in touch. Thank you so much for joining us.
Really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, we got the next segment coming up. Jason's going to talk about a brand that's really in this town important to all of us, I think, or it is to me. I like to eat, so
that's right. Our first field brand review coming up
next on The Hook. We're back on The Hook, the first ever show incorporating marketing and branding and business and pretty much everything that you need for your professional life, our personal life. I mean, we talked about philanthropy and volunteering last segment. My name is Josh Reno, along with Jason Arsmont. You can find us online, thehookradio.com. And now it's time for us to talk more about branding and to bring in a company here in the Houston area, which I really love because I'm a food guy.
Before we start that, I want to give a quick shout out to Tammy Dow with Spot On Public Relations. Tammy helped hook us up with getting in touch with Lance and allowing us to get to know each other and have him on as a guest. So thank you so much, Tammy, for your support on the show.
And she may be my new best friend.
Yeah,
I love
you
her.
guys are
She's
going
fantastic.
on about drinking beer. So this segment, we're going to talk about branding, the do's and don'ts. And what I thought would be fun is if we had a segment that's kind of dedicated to maybe each week we'll do a field brand review, where throughout my day-to-day week or whatever, I'll go out, I'll experience a company's brand, a product, or a restaurant or whatever, and then I'll come on the radio here and I'll just talk trash about them.
Okay, so trash, yeah.
No, we'll talk about the positive things they're doing and the lessons that we can learn from how they're incorporating their brand into their professional presentation.
And the brand that we're going to be talking about today is
Gringos Mexican Kitchen. It's all Tex-Mex, man.
I love food, man. I love that place.
It's so good.
This has nothing to do with your brand review, but their food is fantastic.
Well, hey, that's part of the brand, right? I mean, if you're going to create a brand, we always talk about the brand needing to be an experience, and hands down, they've done that with you for sure because you're on point with the food.
So let's start off with the visual look. As you're going to Gringos to eat. You're going to hang out with friends and family. The website is probably the first thing that you look at, don't you think?
Yeah, and I will say too. So these brand reviews, they are a review of the brand, but I'm not a critic. So this has nothing to do a formal like food critic or product review guy.
Hey, look, this guy right here, I'm a food pro.
Food pro. We'll
I got
let you
that
be
part.
that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first thing we want to do is we want to go take a look at the website. And that's probably not part of the typical shopping experience, but for the marketing guy and the branding guy, I figured let's start there. I'm already familiar with the brand and have been to the restaurant, but as soon as you open up the website, kind of blown away with this consistency of this Welcome to Vegas, this feel of energy and excitement. Their logo is actually the Welcome to Vegas sign. I don't know if you've noticed that or not, but right there on the homepage, direct center, and then the whole rest of the site is kind of themed out like a casino, like a slot machine. So you've got these items in a row, and you can click and pull the handle, and then I think it kind of like pairs up like a drink with a food and a dessert. We probably need to get one of those around the office. We could just like order in whatever it is. If it's a daiquiri and a
anything with beer for me, please. I want anything that goes with beer.
I'm seeing a common theme here, man.
Food and beer.
But yeah, so right away, looking at the website, you could tell that it was professionally done. There was some real thought that went into this website, and they're very consistent so far with page to page. The navigation's easy, and there's really already an experience. Here on the site, there's a little game. There's things to engage with. So right off the bat, really good remarks here.
Okay, and then we go into visual appearance.
Yeah, from there you drive up to the location, and I think this is something that so many small boutique shops or mom and pop restaurants don't do. They'll get the typical signage that the strip center will allow you to do, maybe the brown or the black font. Well, these guys just blow it out of the park. They've got the exact same Welcome to Vegas style sign that says Gringos on it. It's out by the road as well as on the building. The exact same way it's lit up, already exuding energy and this kind of exciting atmosphere to it. So curbside, phenomenal job.
After that, we go into the feel of whenever you walk into the restaurant and the branding that's there whenever you first have your I guess it would be your first experience almost.
Yeah, definitely. For me, I think one of the areas that a lot of restaurants mess up on is they don't have a designated hostess. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why, because, I'm sure it just has to do with they think they can save money by not having someone there. But that's the first impression. As soon as you walk in the door, there's someone there with a smile to greet you, say welcome, and kind of set the tone for what you can expect the service to be once you get seated. And once you walk in the door of any Gringos, you'll be blown away with just the decor, the level of detail from the trim around the door frames to the designs and the decor on the wall. The ceilings are done up. It is, by far not a typical strip center. It's a first-tier, first-class presentation, and they always, always, always have a really nice hostess there to welcome you and get your number issued, because you're going to wait. This place always has a wait.
Which is, a lot of times we think the waiting is the bad part. But there's so much that you can learn about that. If you're in the business side, you can learn about that. But also, it's kind of like they're pulling you in and saying, well, you're going to wait right here, but we have other things to offer you.
The ice cream. They have soft serve ice cream.
Well, they do have that
They do have that.
But even in the last time that we went, there was an area for my kids to hang out and play, and they're having a good time. And then there's the water area where they're going and they're playing. I'm not always wanting them to do that, but it's there for them and to keep them entertained, because that's one of the hardest things for me is keeping kids entertained while we're at a restaurant.
And I think what I heard is your rowdy kids just went and jumped in the fountain. Is that right?
My kid, my 4-year-old,
supposed to be over there.
My
man.
4-year-old comes up to me. He's got a handful of quarters.
You're like, wait a minute.
No, man, you're still in dreams. The Goonies said you can't do that.
That's right.
Goonies. You're listening to The Hook, and we're always online. You can catch us at thehookradio.com. Any questions or comments, or you want us to send us an email, you can do that. So next thing we look, okay, the brand consistency is there, but next on the list, what about something to eat, right?
Yeah, the food's got to be spot on, right?
Okay.
This kind of wraps up the experience from the website, pulling up curbside, walking in the door, having that unbelievable first presentation, and then the food comes. It has to be displayed just as well. If the decor in the restaurant, I always talk about mirroring your brand. If you're going to have a high-end looking brand, well, then you have to mirror that with every possible touch point. And I think the plate, the food, the presentation is one of those touch points. So It comes out well displayed. It has everything, has the garnishes on it. It's really well done. I like that they don't just have the typical Tex-Mex dishes, right? They normally would flare them up, so to speak. Like I said, I'm not a food critic, but they're going to jazz them up a bit, so to speak, with some shrimp or something on the side just to make the dishes a little bit more. The price point's on the higher end for a Tex-Mex restaurant, but honestly, you don't even notice it because you're having an experience. You're willing to pay a little bit more. The service is great. The food is good. And so, yeah, all in all, the food is spot on and matches the brand. There's a real consistency to that.
So you feel like everything ties together?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Even, which isn't on our brand review, maybe kind of a strange thing, but I know some other guys out there with me. I'm kind of a restroom guy. Like whenever I go somewhere, I know it sounds weird. Josh is looking at me here in the studio. If we had a camera on Josh's face right now, but I like to know where everything's at when I go into a building. So I like to, okay, the kitchen's over there. Here's the restroom. I know Josh is still looking at me.
Okay.
Here's the restroom. So, but man, the decor, the tile, the backsplash, everything was done from the entryway to the restrooms to where you're sitting, the main dining areas, the bar. Everything was just extremely clean, and in just the attention to detail was there's no way to overlook that.
And that part is important to me as a dad of a 4 and an 8-year-old. I had to spend a lot of time.
The bathroom trips?
Yes. It drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Being clean is a big part of that. And I don't think that everybody understands. Yes, we're trying to eat and we're trying to have a great experience, but that is a very essential part of the experience. Yep. If you have children and have to go back and forth quite a few times because of them.
Absolutely. So and start to kind of wrap this up. I think this is a good opportunity. So many people overlook, and I was even talking with my wife about this the other day, and we were at another restaurant, and I said, can you just, look at the difference between this place and Gringos, right? Because I knew that I was going to do this review on Gringos, so I'd, had my notes together. And, you could tell they opened up a strip center restaurant. We've all been to them, drop ceiling. The decor is kind of mismatched. It looks like a very mom and pop. And, for the most part, Gringos is wildly successful. They have, I think, 10 locations here in Houston. Russell Yabar is completely committed to these restaurants, though. So even though they have a small number of franchises, they invest heavily up front in the experience. And I've never met Russell. I don't know anything about his business model, but I can tell you from a brand perspective, just from going and experiencing it, those details were well thought out, making sure that the entire experience was going to be met and was going to be different than anywhere else. And you'd rather wait in line there than be seated immediately at a typical strip center Tex-Mex restaurant. So I encourage you, your business owners out there, start paying attention to those types of things. See what level of detail can you incorporate into your business or into your product presentation or the customer service that you provide. Try out some of these places that we're going to be acknowledging and recommending to you and see what you think. Go experience them and then go back to the hookradio.com, drop me a message and tell me if you agree. I'd love to get your feedback. We'll see if your review matches up.
Yeah, we would like to, if you have a business too, would like to do your field review.
Yeah.
You can reach us at thehookradio.com for that also. Now, next segment, our last segment, it's going to be talking about tips of the trade. You want to give us a little insight on that before we go?
Possibly the most important trade of business, sales. We're going to talk about how to wrap up and close the sale. Bring that money home, baby.
It's on the way next on The Hook. You're listening to The Hook, online at thehookradio.com. My name is Josh Reno, along with Jason Arsmont, who is the marketing maverick. And we mentioned that in the first segment. Give us a little recap about the marketing maverick, because I know that you don't have like a 6-shooter out here. You're not going crazy or anything.
Well, the best recap would be to go to the marketing go to thehookradio.com and check out the podcast. We've got all these episodes up there. The Marketing Maverick is a nickname that I picked up early on in the marketing industry as just a sales guy before I was allowed to start sharing strategy and marketing ideas. And doing so one day in a meeting, one of the managers leaned over and said, "Man, that kid's a real maverick." And I was pretty proud at the time and stuck with me ever since.
And the show is called The Hook, that magical moment whenever someone hooks you in.
Yep.
And that's really what marketing and branding is about and what we deal with on a day-to-day basis with Brightbox. So this segment is going to be talking about tips of the trade. Why don't you tell us about our sponsor of this segment that you know pretty intimately?
I know these guys well. The sponsor for this segment is Shadowbox Talent. ShadowboxTalent.com. Shadowbox is one of the companies that we built. Gary Valentine, his wife Callie Valentine, and I kind of came together with this understanding that we wanted to have an HR outsourcing group. I had spent years building up our other box companies and just frustrated as all get out with the payroll processing, staffing the people, managing all of the insurance and all the requirements that come with that. I mean, it was just a nightmare. We tried some of the other big payroll guys, and honestly, I just felt like a number. They would forget my name. They'd call me up as Joe. They'd call my wife up and give us all different names from time to time. And so when this opportunity came up with a seasoned veteran like Gary Valentine's got a long history in producing talent on a recruiting and staffing level, along with his wife, we were just thrilled to do so. So if you find yourself in the need for payroll processing, staffing, recruiting, anything along the HR outsourcing realm, get in touch with my friends over at Shadowbox, shadowboxtalent.com.
Talk about what they do in the personal touch that they kind of provide with Shadowbox.
Yeah, it's a small boutique group. So it's full HR outsourcing. For those other small businesses out there, I know there's a lot of you guys who, are currently doing your own payroll. You're cutting checks. You're worried about, can I offer health insurance or not? What's the effects of Obamacare? How is this going to affect my business? How can I make things easier? Shadowbox is your solution. The owners of the company are involved on a day-to-day basis, Gary and Callie, and they'll be right there to answer any questions and help you out and provide you with the best possible service and, great pricing to match it. So check them out, shadowboxtalent.com.
All right, today's business tip.
Today we're talking about closing the sale. So we're going to assume you've already we'll talk about other aspects of the sales process, but today we're going to talk about closing. I think it's something that a lot of people don't spend enough time on because they figure that once they have the hook, we talked about that moment where the client decides, you could see it in their eyes if you're face-to-face, that they've decided they're going to buy from you. But there's some key things you need to do to make sure that you complete that sale. So that's what we're going to talk about today. One of the big things I practice this myself. It takes effort, but it's being prepared to get the signature, even if you're just going in on an initial pitch. Get a signature on a contract, even if you're just going in on an initial pitch. Josh is laughing because not too long ago, I mistakenly didn't follow my own advice, and we had a little story I'm going to share with you guys here in a minute.
Okay, you're going to tell that story?
I'll fess up. I'll tell it. Hey, growing pains, right? What I always say is if you're going out, especially on client meetings for my B2B guys, if you're going out to do a pitch, take a proposal, take a contract with you. And the reason why I say this is because it's easy to go through your PowerPoint presentation. It's easy to give your pitch. And at the end of that meeting, you're kind of left saying, okay, well, what's the next steps? Or, hey, I'll follow up with you with a proposal. So what I recommend all of my sales guys to do is to take a proposal based on the general scope of the initial phone call. When you're done with your presentation, you pull the proposal out and you set it on the table. The client's going to know what that is. 9 times out of 10, they understand that that's a contract. They can see the formatting of it. Usually it looks like a contract. But you're showing the client that you cared enough before you came, that you wrote out the details of the proposal, you had something ready to go, and that you're eager and you're aggressive and you're asking for the sale. So many times I don't see this being done. And, a good example of this reasoning behind it, just a couple weeks ago, Josh and I were at a sales call, and we go in and we do the pitch, and they're ecstatic. They love the brand that we presented.
Everything about it,
right? That's what we heard. Even heard, wow, do I need to cut you a check right now?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is whenever you knew that you had it like hook, line, and sinker. That's right. The hook was in. We're ready to go with it.
Yeah. And so what I did was I didn't follow my own advice, and I backed off the tension. Instead of reeling it in, I allowed the fish to just swim up to the dock, right, and try to jump into the igloo. Because what happened was I said, oh, no, that's not necessary. I'll send you an invoice. This is exciting. We'll get started right away. We'll get back to the office. We'll send you a list of things that we'll need from you.
But you didn't get the signature.
I did not get the signature. They were so excited, and I guess I was kind of caught up in the moment. This doesn't happen often for me as a sales guy. I've been retained by companies to put presentations together, PowerPoints, even to go give the pitches on their behalf. So I have to say I'm I'm pretty dang good at sales. I don't normally forget or neglect to, but I guess I got comfortable with this. She was an older lady, real sweet, and I don't know. I lost sight of what we were there to do.
The background on it too was not only did you feel like it was comfortable and that the sale was already done, but you didn't think about what was happening outside of whenever we left, because
Right.
this is what happened, that we have the designs for pretty much all the collateral. This is what the website's going to look like. Everything was spot on. It was perfect. Client loved it. And then we leave. We don't have a proposal signed. And the work that we did, there was someone else that was working on the website
The IT guy.
and said, well, I can do all of that. Now, we've seen the work that the IT guy did for the website, and I'm not saying it's not that it's bad or anything. It just isn't the same brand that we created for this business.
Right.
We created something brand new and according to where they're going with the business, and it matches everything.
Yeah,
The
it was
branding,
spot on.
so this person, I don't even know who the IT person was, but they said, well, we can do that. And so the business owner
Yeah. So
trusted
now there's
that.
negotiations, additional conversations, and had I followed my own rules here, I would have had a signature that day. I would have had a check for the deposit, and that doesn't always happen that way, right? I mean, normally you walk in and they're going to need some adjustments or some tweaks, and there's some key things there. In asking for the sale, you pull the proposal out. They see that you make a commitment to them, to the product or the service that you're selling, and it looks like you've done this a million times. You don't want to go into a situation where you're making it up. Even if this is the first sales pitch you've ever been on, you need to present yourself as if you've done this multiple times before. And so by pulling that contract out, asking for their business, it's very simple. What you do is you say, look, if there's revisions that need to be made to the contract, no problem. I'm going to go ahead and revise this contract per our conversation. I'll send it over this email, today, tomorrow, whatever it may be, sooner the better. But you need to ask them that when you send this over, is there any reason why they wouldn't commit? And it's a very key question. Ask them, is there any reason why you would not commit, and just stop talking. So many people keep talking, and they don't allow the client to ask this question.
It's because it's uncomfortable.
Well, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. It feels awkward because you're asking for something, and then you kind of have to let them, respond, right? And I think it's getting comfortable in you have to come to the realization at some point, if you just sit back and wait for everybody to come to you with money, it's going to be a slow grow, right? You're going to have to be comfortable putting a contract in front of somebody and asking them, what is it going to take to earn your business? And if I make that adjustment or that tweak or that change, is there any reason why you wouldn't commit?
You're listening to The Hook on thehookradio.com. Online, you can find us there. If you want to email us, social media, all available. That's Jason Arsmont. My name is Josh Reno. We're talking about the business tip of the day, which is closing the sale.
The last little step here that we want to talk about, or piece of the puzzle here for closing the sales, is in the presentation. It's easy for sales guys to become too kind of salesy, right? You kind of seem like you're a shark. You're getting too aggressive. Maybe you're too excited about what it is that you're going to be selling. This is the first presentation of this size, whatever it may be. And this is where I challenge salesmen and women to really understand what it is they're selling and what it is that they're providing to their clients. Because, for example, it's easy for me to get really excited when I'm going in and selling, business strategy, consulting, branding, marketing, sales support, because I'm truly passionate about helping people grow their business. I mean, that's the whole reason why we do this show. I can get up in the morning, I can come do this show, we can put content together because I'm passionate about helping people build their companies. I want people's dreams to come true. I want their visions and their goals to become a reality. And I know that through proper marketing, I can make that happen. And so for me, I get excited about their benefit in buying my product, not excited about selling it. And I think that's a key differentiator. So many times you go in, if you look too aggressive, you have to look aggressive on their behalf. Want to be great. Man, I can't wait to see the increase in sales when we implement XYZ, right?
That's one of the things that I've learned from you is that whenever you talk to a client, at first you say, this is what we did, and then everything after that is we. You'll say we. What we want to accomplish, it is a collaboration. It's what we're doing and that goal that we're trying to reach together. And then whenever you talk about their business, you say us.
Right. Right. Yeah. The setbacks and the growths and the gains are all us, right? And I think that's kind of a natural thing I do, especially on the marketing side. But it's definitely a good point, Josh, that you start putting yourself in the shoes of your client, of your customer right away, that we are going to experience this together. Showing your eagerness to close comes across as being more genuine when you care about them and their results more than the money, right? Because the money will come.
Thanks to Lance Gilliam for coming in today and chatting with us at our sponsor in the first hour, which was
The Work Lodge.
The Work Lodge.
Shadowbox Talent.
And we also got to say thank you to Tammy for helping us out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And so we're going to be back next week, new topics, and we'll be answering your questions. So now you can go to our website, thehookradio.com. If you have any questions for us, we'd love to answer it next week. You have any great success stories, want to talk about that too? Thehookradio.com is where you find us. For Jason Arspot, Josh Reno, we'll see you next week.